Welcome everyone. Call this meeting to order. The Franklin Town Board for December 3rd, 2012. We start down our agenda. We had minutes of November 5th and November 27th distributed in your packages. What says the board?
I have a request on the November 27th meeting. The draft of it was just one sentence about what took place in about an hour and a half meeting. So I'd like to make a request that we attach all the newspaper articles involving that meeting to these minutes, in case anybody, like my grandchildren or something, one day want to come back and look at that meeting.
It really wasn't a meeting.
I beg your pardon, it was a public meeting.
The mayor called an unofficial meeting.
I know it was.
Somebody called me on my behalf, and I never objected. Let's put it that way, but I think it was an informational. It had the word informational.
That's about it, one way or the other.
Okay. There's a motion, Tom?
Yeah, it's a motion, but I don't think it'll fly.
Is there a second? All in favor of the motion? Don't have that second. So you're in favor of the motion? All opposed? Okay. Any other items on the dealing with the minutes? The motion
I
to be
move
approved.
we pass them.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? All right. Public sessions, time to come and briefly be heard for the board. It's not really a time for a lot of feedback back and forth, but certainly we want to hear from those who've come and signed up. Matt Bateman, 589 North Gibson Road, you're signed up first, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Tell us what you hear.
Thanks for the time. I appreciate it. I'm Matt Bateman. I am a native of Macon County, born and raised here. I'm a motivated and passionate individual for this community. I'd like to get that out there in the forefront. I've got 2 points that I'd like to discuss with you tonight. One being Venture Local Franklin. I've been thoroughly involved in that movement. And I'd just like to share a couple things about that. We began in November 2011, and I'd like to share our vision statement with you guys. Venture Local Franklin promotes positive and sustainable community advancement. As a citizen-maintained movement, we value inclusive participation, which is both action-based and outcome-focused. Venture Local Franklin strives to collaboratively strengthen the regional economy, embrace our natural resources, establish common goals, drive innovation, and nurture entrepreneurial ventures with the ultimate goal of moving Franklin forward. Now, since the beginning, we have focused on several initiatives, and at the heart of those initiatives are our local economy. Bottom line, create awareness of shopping local, supporting our local businesses and neighbors. We've done that through a shop local awareness promotion, whether that be on a Facebook page or just word of mouth, going to your neighbor and sharing a sale or sharing a promotion, or sharing a new business. We've done it also through cash mobs. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with cash mobs. It's a new movement, basically just to support local businesses again in the local economy. We've been partnered with Macon County News, highlighting locally owned businesses and local industry. It's called Venture Local Series. I don't know if you guys have seen that or not. I'm sure you have. That partnership was unique because the highlighting of the business or the industry was done regardless of they're an advertiser or not. It was a nice move and a nice partnership on both of us to work on each other, to promote local businesses. And lastly, Street Fest Block Party. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Downtown. That was a 4-part series this season that we put together and really boosted the local economy. I think you'll find out if you ask any merchants in the downtown area. We have future plans. It's not just a downtown thing. Venture Local Franklin encompasses Franklin as a whole. We want to move around. We want to go to Highlands Road. We've already set preliminary talks with those folks over there to do something similar to Street Fest, not exactly like Street Fest. Those things are in the works, and again, at the heart and soul of it is positive growth of the local economy. There's no hidden agendas. There's no other thing involved. And that's a major point that I wanted to get across. Venture Local Franklin has provided me multiple opportunities to promote Franklin in a positive light throughout the region, not only Franklin. I had the opportunity to speak at the North Carolina Entrepreneurship Summit put on by the NC Rural Economic Development Center in Asheville a couple months ago. Great exposure for Franklin, a great way to show them what we're doing and to show them that we're really trying to be a leader in the region. I was the only representative west of Asheville at that summit, which comes as no surprise sometimes. But we were represented well. I'll let you guys know that. Also, I'll be at the Venture Local Conference this Friday. It's an Advantage West initiative, and that might sound familiar, Venture Local Franklin, Venture Local Conference. We kind of borrowed or piggybacked that name from them, with their permission, of course. But it's the same general idea of sharing fresh new ideas, putting new ideas on the table, and putting them into action, not just running them up a flagpole. Second point, and it comes as one of the last things I mentioned, is Street Fest. At the November 27th meeting this past week, I was here. I didn't get a chance to speak, and shame on me.
You had to check.
Shame on me.
You just didn't take it.
Hey, there's a lot of talking going on that. I made sure I was involved in a lot of the planning steps for Street Fest. I know there's been a lot of issue with the banner. There's been some other issues with booths, etc. At the beginning of that planning stages, I took every step that I knew how to take, whether it be contacting Linda Schlote for the different pieces of property to reserve, the gazebo, the clock tower, etc. Whether it be the banner, going through our town planner, and the DOT was on the message. I was taking the steps that I thought were ideal to take, and how I perceived how that was brought up last week made it sound like we were cutting corners. We're trying to get things sneakily done, and that is not my intentions at all. Like I said, I tried to go through what steps I knew how to take, and at no point in time was I told that I needed to come before this board to get certain things done. Now I know that is the case now, and then going forward, we'll certainly take those steps. I just want to clear that up, and let you guys know that there's no ill will or intent to undermine anything. I just want to take the proper steps to do that. And the one thing that really was a concern of mine, particularly with the banner, the first 3 Street Fests, we had a series of 4. The first 3 went along fine. No one mentioned anything to us. And then it became October 2nd, I was notified that we could no longer do the banner, we could no longer close the street, we could no longer do the booths in the parking areas. And no other alternate solution was presented, other than obviously coming before this board. But at that point, that's the 26th. So that kind of handcuffed us there and limited our resource for promotion. The banner, I'd like to say one more thing about the banner, and I know there's been discussion that this is going to come up again on behalf of you guys and deciding whether or not it's a good idea. I'd just like to say on behalf of myself and Venture Local Franklin, I think it's a great idea, if it makes sense. And I'd like to see things approached that way. If it makes sense, let's do it, let's try it. If it's not going to hurt anything, let's do it. It had a huge impact on the attendance numbers at Street Fest. I know that for a fact. And I feel very passionate about that. It's some simple thing as a banner, but I know it's over a roadway, and there's things to consider there. But I hope that we can make things like that work. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you. Betsy Gooder?
My name is Betsy Gooder. I'm a business owner, publisher of the Macon County News for the past 30 years. We distribute 13,003 newspapers weekly in Franklin, Highlands, Silva, Dillsboro, Dillard, and inclusively. We try to cover everything that happens in this community, and we are sustained only by our advertising dollar. Like all of Main Street in America, I rely on you to keep us in business, and you rely on us to keep you in business. We have a situation here in our town which has greatly disturbed me. My dad always said, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. But I feel I must come forward because I really feel that we have missed the crux of the matter at the forefront. I am referring to the rift between the town and the business community. Last week I called Linda Schloop to see if she wanted to run the same ad that she ran last year, which was a half page for Winter Wonderland in this year's paper, this next week. She replied no. Now this advertising is paid from the Franklin Main Street program, Town of Franklin, TDC, and Macon County TVA. This is money that is taxpayers' money. Taxpayers pay this money so that we can run these advertisements. I am here, I asked her to give me an idea of who the advertisers were going to be. She told me that it was Fun in the Mountains, Gainesville Times, Smoky Mountain News, Mountain Laurel Magazine, Franklin Press, the radio, and I believe there are also some cards also that are distributed. I suggested that we run or split the ad that's in the Franklin Press, and that would be fair. She replied no, emphatically, that as long as you run derogatory information about me, I will not advertise in your paper. I was really taken back by this comment. These are not her dollars. Linda was referring to the first story that Brittany had written after the last board meeting in the Macon County News, where it was discussed about venture local. I know my reporter writes very factual articles, but this is not the point. The point is, Linda Schloop has let her personal feelings overshadow her job as a representative of the town, Franklin. After talking to my staff, they suggested that maybe I should get in touch with the representatives of the Streets Board, which are Joyce Hanley and Sissy Patilla, who I contacted and asked if they would come to my office and we could chat. I explained that what had occurred, and I wanted to mend the fences. Both Joyce and Sissy were not very cooperative, and they said that the town aldermen were mad at the Macon County News. And Sissy went so far as to say unkind things and hurtful things to Brittany. She said, "I don't like to see you sitting cross-legged out there and pulling on your hair." Well, I have to say, it just boggled me. I couldn't believe that Sissy said this. Let me tell you, Brittany Parker spent a year in a wheelchair, partially paralyzed, her senior year in high school. It causes her excruciating pain to let her legs hang from a chair in which she cannot reach the floor. So she crosses her legs. Sissy used unkind personal attack to unnerve Brittany, and she left the room crying. We concluded the meeting with me saying that I felt like I had no other choice but to come before you as a board. To add more fuel to the fire, I want you all to know that last summer after the Folk Fest, I was seated on a bench in front of the gazebo when Linda Schlote approached me. I thought she was going to be jolly and say, gee, what a good job you have done with promoting Venture Local. But instead, she was very aggressive and was yelling at me and saying I needed to give less press time to Venture Local, etc. I was so abashed that I just got up and walked away from her. Now, there were some people standing there that were going to perform that night that were from out of town, that were square dancers. And they stopped me and they said, who was that person? And I told them who she was. And they said, well, we're going to write a letter to the town about her, because they couldn't believe the way that she acted. This is not the way I expect to be treated by anybody, anywhere, much less a town employee. I feel very strongly that you aldermen should look at this situation and reconsider how the town and also the Main Street programs are represented. And I leave you with this. The town and the business owners don't have a communication problem. They just have the wrong kind of communication. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Brittany Parker.
I wanted to come speak tonight to clear up a few things that have been bothering, that I was informed have been bothering the board, or at least Ms. Patillo. First, Ms. Patillo did call me and apologize this afternoon. She did, and I really do appreciate that. During a meeting in her office last week, Ms. Patillo brought to my attention that my actions during the board meeting offended her, and she found it to be rude and disrespectful. Ms. Patillo said that it offended her that I sit in the meetings, sometimes with my legs crossed in the chair, and that I play with my hair. While those may sound like really silly things to be bothered by, or even a silly reason for me to be upset, I want to explain them a little bit more. First, let me say that I'm not apologizing for these things. When I was 16 years old, I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. As part of my disability, I have several compulsions or tics that I have no control over. I take medication for it, and I've been in therapy for nearly 10 years. Playing with my hair, as silly as it sounds, is a compulsion. Trust me, it drives me insane. I don't want to do it, and I hate that I do it. I would give anything in the world to just be able to not do it, but I can't. When I was 19 years old, I had a professor in college who embarrassed me in class because it bothered her so bad she called me out on it. And as a result, I cut my hair off to about my chin and to prevent me from being able to touch it. It wasn't until after college, not after I graduated college 2 years ago, that I started to grow it out again. I never in a million years felt the same ridicule and bullying that I was succumbed to as a teenager because of my disability would carry over into my adult life, and up until this point, it hasn't. The second thing that Ms. Patillo says bothers her about my actions during the meetings is that I sit cross-legged in a chair. Well, first, I'm not sure if any of you have had to sit in these chairs for an extended period of time. But sometimes I sit there for meetings that last anywhere between an hour and 3 and sit there sitting straight up and proper. But that's beside the point. Another thing that you may not know about me is that when I was 17 years old, I ruptured the nerves attached to the spinal cord during a track meet, and I became paralyzed from the waist down. I lost all mobility and feelings in my legs. I spent several months in Nashville, and after extensive shock therapy treatment and realignment of my spinal cord, I gained the feeling back in my legs. And with months of physical therapy and being confined to a wheelchair, I was able to walk again. The injury caused the nerves in my back to die, and they are useless without constant stimulation. Without wearing a device that constantly sends electric shock to my lower back, I'm constantly at risk of re-injuring my back and repeating the process. board is horizontally attached, but it's not vertically attached, and the lack of stability causes it to slide out of place often. I'm not supposed to sit, stand, or walk for extended periods of time. So sitting in that chair for upwards of 3 hours can prove to be very trying. The fact that I'm 5 foot tall, 5'2", and my feet can barely touch the ground, pulls on my back and causes severe pain and causes a numbness and loss of feelings in my legs. So yes, I do cross my legs because it helps subsidize the pain. I have the utmost respect for each of you as individuals and as leaders of this town. I do not want any of you to think that for a moment that I'm being disrespectful while I'm sitting here during the meetings. I think the fact that while I may look like I'm being inactive, inattentive, and rude, I listen to every single word that gets said. And I do not think that any of you could say that I have ever misquoted you or inaccurately reported on anything the town has ever done. I've been covering these meetings for over 1.5 years. In that time, if any of you have had a problem with me, Ms. Patillo with my behaviors during the meetings, or Ms. Hadley with the report, with the way that I report, I'm at the office 5 days a week from 9 a.m. sometimes until 9 at night, and on the weekends I'm usually covering some event in this county. I would have been happy to listen and do whatever I could to fix things, but instead, as elected officials, you chose to harbor your frustration or gossip about me behind my back. That is no way to treat another individual. I hope that I have not offended any of you because of my disability, and if so, I hope this allows you to better understand me.
Larry, if you still want to say a word or two? Okay.
I just want to bring up that I haven't heard from anybody. Mr. Curtis told me that they were working on that. But Mr. Curtis brought up that they're talking about the water that runs down the street. My biggest concern is what damage they've done to my driveway that causes water to run into my garage. And the fact that now they have a speed bump in front of my driveways to where it wasn't put back like it was supposed to be. It wasn't put back like it was. Now they've got a speed bump there that I have to cross to get into my yard. And I asked them several times not to do that, but that's what I've got. And I'm concerned about the water going into my garage, not how much water is running down the road. Of course, the way they got the water running down the road now, it causes more water to run on that side of the road and go into the garage door. That is part of it. That's not all of it. That's only part of it. That even with the water running down the road before they drove their track hose and stuff in there, it didn't run in my garage. Now it does.
Do you believe it's a problem that's easily remedied? I mean,
Well, the part that they tore up, yes, it's all they gotta do is fix the driveway. But the part that he's talking about, water running down the road, that's been an ongoing thing for the last 15 years. They paved that road, I wanna say 10 to 15 years ago, and instead of putting a crown on it like it had, they made it flat. And of course, with it flat and running to my side of the street, all the water runs on that side of the street now. It used to have a crown on it, and over half of the water would go on the other side of the street. It'd run down a ditch and into a big culvert that's down there, but it don't do that now. And of course, we get more water from the top of the road now since they cut the road up there. There's no outlet for the water to go off up there either anymore. So all the water comes down the road now. But until they smashed the driveway down, I didn't have water going into my garage. That's my biggest concern.
the work's complete over there? Or is it?
As far as the lines, we're still looking at this and we've got something, needs to be done, but there's a problem there because there's about a 3-foot difference in elevation and even the road is still there. Even if you put a berm on it, you wouldn't be able to make a vehicle cross it with a vehicle, so.
Is the town still exploring this?
Yes.
The important thing is to make it right, to the extent that it can be, sometimes disruption in the, not the civil engineer, but Berlin says that the town is still looking at ways to help you there. It's not.
Well, he's looking into ways to control the water running down the road. That's one thing. I'm looking for the town to fix the driveway that they messed up. The town didn't do it. The company that
I can
put the
see-
sewer in.
I can shed some light on that for you, Larry. We've got some statements from various people that we're still trying to complete, and those have been turned over to the town attorney, and when we get the last ones, he'll be contacting you about it. So that will put to rest.
Well,
Pretty certain.
I know what your opinion is and Jay's opinion is. They said
Right.
that they didn't tear it up. Well, they didn't run water in my driveway, in my garage until they come in there. And if they didn't tear it up, if the town hadn't did it, then the company that did the work did it. That's the only driveway they used. They didn't use any of the other driveways. They used that driveway. And now I've got water running in my
What I'm
garage.
stating to you is that once you see the statements that were been accumulated, be presented to you by the town attorney, who will answer your question.
Well, I talked to James, the guy that actually did the work, the day that he told me that they wasn't gonna fix that driveway.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
And he told me the same thing I'm telling you. But the time Jay talked to him, and then he caught a hold of him, and both of y'all got together, it was an entirely different story.
Well,
And neither here nor there.
your
It's still running
conspiracy
water in
theory
my
aside,
driveway.
There's some other statements to be gathered. Once they're completed, the town attorney will be contacted.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Dan Williams, new matter? A new matter, Dan? A new topic, and not different from tonight, but from your other ones.
Oh, we don't want to let that cat out of the bag, do we?
Oh, that cat's been out of the bag and going a while back, I'm afraid.
Too bad we don't have a newspaper here. So that's, okay, we won't talk about that. I own a house in a city called North Miami. And when I was a little kid, the town bought a big tract of land. And after they bought it, it came out in the newspaper. They had all these wonderful, wonderful drawings, and they called it Inorama. And that was gonna be a permanent World's Fair. And good idea, you know, and over the years, they kept coming out with more drawings and more studies and more ideas, and they spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on the place. I've been by the place 1,000 times, and my whole life has been a weed patch. And when I was in high school, a guy named Walt Disney came to town. He wanted to build the new Walt Disney World there, and he wanted to buy Inorama to put Disney World. Well, he never could make a deal, and you know that story. He went up to Orlando. Well, 1988, I'm reading in the paper that every person in the town of North Miami, that weed patch costs you $10,000 each. Every person costs you $10,000 each. And I think I'm gonna die, and that place is still gonna be a weed patch. And what a shame. I talked to him about developing the place, and somebody like Donald Trump could have came there, or they could have built a
Dan,
couple thousand
look at
multi-million-dollar
it, Dan,
homes.
get to your point, or have a
I'm getting
seat.
to the point.
No, you get to
I'm
it.
getting to the
You
point.
better be there.
Yes, I'm getting to it. If you wanted to interrupt me and you weren't so rude to me, I'd get to the point. Okay, now, the town of Franklin, they did the same thing. They bought a piece of land, and it comes out in the newspaper, here we're gonna build this town center, we're gonna put the fire department, we're gonna put the city hall, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And it looked real good, and the meantime, there's just been a weed patch sitting there. Nothing happened. And it seemed like a couple opportunities came, but Home Depot came here, and well, that was an opportunity to unload it, and it looked like Walmart came here, and that was an opportunity to unload it. And doing anything, when I was a little kid, my dad bought a 280-acre horse ranch, and he came up with 20 ideas to pay for the thing, and I remember when I was in high school, he said he paid for it, it's all paid for, and he turned it into an industrial park, and he said he made over $1 billion profit. That's like making $10 million. Boy, I like that idea. Anyway, last year, y'all were talking about hiring this firm, and they were gonna come out there and look at the piece of land and develop it and come up with some ideas. Well, my little head started going, and I got 20 ideas. I've been I've been to a lot of wonderful places in my lifetime, and I was kind of thinking about a place not far from there, a place called Dillard, Georgia. And they got a real nice deal there, and it's called the Dillard House. They got a first-class restaurant, they got a motel, they got horse stables, they got a meeting room, and the place is always packed, and it's something we don't have here, you know, like a convention center, a meeting place. And I said, oh, what a wonderful idea, you know, Dillard could do it, and we got that piece of land there. And what I was thinking about, I had a deal with some water going on in my head, and I thought, we don't want a motel, let's build maybe like a hunting lodge, like a big log cabin, and make a meeting room out of it, put a bar room there, put log cabins there around the water, and maybe we can get like Ryan's to come here, or Longhorn Steakhouse, and you know, I just got my head going, you know, we can make some money here. And instead of having a weed patch, not making any money, I get tired of paying for 2 weed patches now. And I thought, boy, I like to walk over there. I called a couple of times, and I wanted to get permission to walk on it. And I was going to say, let me draw the whole thing for you. Let me lay it out. Let me give you my ideas. Maybe we can turn it into a money maker. Maybe we can have something really unique, have something for the tours, have a reason to come here, build something we don't have, get a first-class restaurant. Instead of staying in a crummy motel, you can stay in these log cabins. Instead
Dan,
of
your time's up.
okay.
Your
And I
time's up, Dan.
thought,
Thank you.
well, I'd like to do that, and I never got past your answering machines. Whatever.
Dan, your time's up, please.
Okay, whatever happened on that study that we're going to do? Anything ever come of that?
Dan, your time's up.
Well, keep paying on the weed patch, so let's sit there, costing everybody money, okay?
Y'all had the right idea.
You know, it's a fun place.
Okay, new business. Adoption of the 2013 Town Board regular meeting schedule, as it appears in your package. Is there a motion?
I still move.
See you, Bob. Right. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Adoption of the 2013 holiday schedule. That holiday schedule.
I move we adopt that.
Any second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. The rezoning petition for Todd Duval. John, what you got?
Mr. Mayor, it's really just a referral to the planning board for their recommendation on it. I think I was put on there to answer any questions the board might have about it. I'll give the best answer I can. I don't really know much about the petition itself, but we are in the process is just to refer it on to the planning board for a recommendation.
Move to send it on.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. D, authorization for picking on the square. Sam, what you got?
Well, we discussed a concept for renovating, I think, or making improvements to the gazebo square. And in order to do that, we're going to have an alternative site. Last year, of the picking on the square, a couple of sessions were run down here by Donnie Clay, more or less as an experiment, because it was brought on by sidewalk repair replacement, to see how well this site around the parking lot of the town hall would do as a substitute for holding picking on the custom spot. Donnie was satisfied that this space down here is more than adequate for the purposes of his presentations for picking. What I want from the board is if you do want to go on ahead with the concept about improving or renovating the gazebo square, need an authorization to go on ahead and start making improvements down here in terms of power outlets and lighting. And Donnie is working yet on a stage to put together to be ready for the season for next year, to be able to move the picking off the gazebo square.
Really, Tony, you talked to Dolly about this.
John seemed supportive of the idea. In fact, he had mentioned at various times after they had picking down here, just a couple of times that they did, that he liked it. He comfortable down here. He's gonna look into some design of his own as far as the stage was concerned about how to do that. And I guess the other thing that I'm thinking about too is if we move picking for just one year down here, that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to stay down here. I mean, Sam and I talked about that a little bit. Once the gazebo, once the work is completed up there, if we need to do something else, this will not be anything that we can't undo down here.
Well,
I would not be in favor of keeping it here forever. I think it's really great down in the corner, but this would be certainly a setting, wonderful spot for many other things too.
oh, it can serve purposes more
It'd
than
be
just.
wonderful, and once we get lighting and
The question is, Sam, we don't have it budgeted in this year for renovations. We do about how much?
Not the gazebo, but to move down here to the picking.
So it would then be incumbent on the next budget cycle,
To include the renovation.
and that doesn't come into play until July 1.
Unless the board wants to advance that for the renovation of the.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like, there's no money right now budgeted, and really no design
No.
for the gazebo. So is it premature to make this decision?
If we don't do it now, we won't have enough time because picking will start in May.
I see what you're saying there, yes, I do.
we need to be ready here.
And the magistrate court was looking at getting forming a committee to see what, get some kind of plan for that.
How much money do we have in our budget for the parking lot?
We have money in there for lighting improvement, for adding extra power for
Right.
vendors, and for basically the building of the state. And that's totally, we're not projecting it's running more than 12,000.
Before I forget, one of our main lights has been out for a while out there, and we don't have many, one of them's out, it's dark. So is it the thought process that not quite so much having to decide right now about picking for next season, but if we're, like Joyce, comfortable that possibly that small investment for another venue of some permanency, so to speak.
It's something even better local could be using.
Well, there's a lot of different weekends, a lot of different events where the second stage and all will be useful. So, I mean, is it more of a decision right now as to whether we actually wake up in May and want to keep picking up there? Or is it a decision to go ahead and have an alternate to use for picking, or for what purposes at the town?
Well, if you decide not to bring it down, we still have this.
That's my point.
That's your choice.
It gives you a choice, and I think it's, well, the delay of this, now I know if we get, I've already heard from White Oak Street, but picking's over by 9, you can't be too upset if the music stops at dark. But,
There's a lot of people on White Oak Street who sit out on the porch and listen to the music.
well, yeah, but it's gonna cut both ways. That's not the ones I've heard from, but
But
that's.
I can hear them, and I live south. When I'm not picking on the square, I can hear them in my house. But I can also hear the band and the football.
So what I'm thinking is, the board obviously being you, than it is necessarily if we're automatically moved to picking this season.
Get this started.
6 more half.
It is.
If we don't go ahead and move it, we won't be ready to move.
I mean-
If we decide to move it down there temporarily to work on it.
You mean if we don't go ahead and get an alternate?
Yeah.
Right, I agree with that. And does that take, it's in our budget.
Right, but because you're authorizing moving and organizing activity.
Are we doing that tonight? Is that what we want to do tonight?
That's why we brought up to get time.
the time element is over here in the parking lot,
That's what we're talking about.
not the gazebo. The time element is the parking lot. And, you know, I'm more comfortable getting forward on the parking lot myself than right now deciding whether we're gonna end up moving the picnic for whatever reason. But I don't think it's necessary tonight to make that decision. Now, that's just me, and I only.
But Donnie needs to be the one, if Donnie needs to be the one to take care of the stage stuff out there.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows the music anyway. I mean, irrespective, he's our best resource, I would think, for that.
Anywho, the only thing that's required for us to move forward is for approval, sanctioning this improvement down there, separating it, as you said.
I make a motion that we do improvements in the parking lot out here now, so that it might be ready for the spring when we start
Within the budget.
within the budget.
Discussion. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay. All right, John, jump car ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, the town has been looking at the possibility of a junk car ordinance for something like 3 or 4 years. I think some of my earliest drafts of it were back in late 2008 or 9. It was brought up again through the course of working with the nuisance ordinance committee. I found that to be very helpful for us to sort of talk through and for a couple of board members to get a feel for where these are going. I thank that committee. It's been very helpful to me. The ordinance before you approaches the problem of abandoned and junk vehicles in about three different methods, 2 of which are sort of set out as police power ordinances to remedy abandoned vehicles and see how that is defined in the ordinance, to abate junk motor vehicles, as that's defined, and also determines that certain vehicles that are left to collect water or, you know, shovel weeds and that sort of thing are a nuisance. So this will be one of our first approaches to a new look at a nuisance ordinance. This is one in part. It would be administered by the police department and the town code enforcement officer, both of whom, if you approve it, I'll be meeting with to talk over what enforcement is going to look like. And on that same token, you'll see that I have put in an effective date, and this is just suggested, and the board can change it if you want to, but an effective date of February 1st, 2013, so that we would have some time to consider how many properties we're talking about that have violations, have some conversations with those property owners possibly about voluntarily getting some cleanup, so it's not just in effect the next day and here we come calling about it. There is, as mandated by law, and most of this is sort of set by statute, a process of appeal for owners who have junked or abandoned vehicles who come in violation of the ordinance. If you have any other questions about it, I'm more than happy to answer.
I have a question on the section. The definition of abandoned vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Number 3, on private property without consent of the owner, occupant of the therefore for longer than 2 hours.
That's how it's phrased in the ordinance, or in the ordinance, in statute.
Okay.
Section 168-303 sets out those 4 definitions, as the definition of abandoned vehicle.
Does that put the responsibility or the allowance of the owner to have it removed on their own? If someone leaves a vehicle in my front yard, I want to call a record and have to tow it off, if I don't know who it is.
You still could. You would also have the, you would have
Can I use this
this
as a-
process
okay,
also.
all right.
You wouldn't be prohibited from doing that.
Okay. issues that I think I understand it.
But really, and I think part of the reason for the statutory authorization to do a thing like this is that if you're a private landowner and somebody leaves a vehicle without your permission on your property and you have it towed away, theoretically, you have converted it. It's a tort kind of thing that you might have a good defense that they abandoned it on my property and it sat there for 3 days. But it's still a defense, and this process, if you would put this process in place instead, it provides a due process, review of exactly what happened. It gives that person an opportunity to get it back. So I think that's why it would be a cleaner sort of process than just everybody, call a record if it's a car not without permission.
At some time back, we had just a program that we did, going around and trying to pick up the junk, called we offered that scrap metal. It just kind of went a cycle and got put on the shelf, I guess.
I like the intent was to try to get a lot of them removed, where if you did a lot of this stuff and had a lot of people, go along with it, you would have that work. So many will, so.
And I think maybe with the backing of an ordinance that people know is going to come into effect, that a program like that might be more effective.
It's about $350 you can get for most vehicles or so. Just for the scrap metal.
Oh, it costs money.
Not $350.
Well, there's record services that advertise in the local papers every day, we'll come pick up your car for that.
Oh, yeah.
Cost anything.
Yeah. That's right.
No, they're gonna get $350 for it, or more.
Yeah, could be more.
They little scrap metal, inflatables and stuff.
Whether it's a Focus or a Cadillac.
I think our older,
About 3 times surplus is.
I think our older draft called them, one that was, worth less than $300.
They're all worth that.
They're all worth that.
It was actually worth less than $100. And I looked into, after the nuisance ordinance committee met a couple of times, I looked into the history of that. There was a local or a session law that all these localities were asking to get added to that bumped that from 100 to 500. And finally, I think they saw the wisdom that everybody needed to do that. $100 didn't get you anywhere, and changed it to a statewide authorization.
So what are you looking at in this bunch tonight, John?
If the board is comfortable with it, I think it is in a position to be adopted. If you want more time with it, it certainly can wait. I would probably bump the effective date out another month to, again, give us a little bit of planning time.
Well, once we get going, I mean, it can always be changed, but it looks like it pretty much covers it. And you reference a lot of North Carolina general statutes, that, so we're using wording that's already been.
Oh, he didn't make it up out of whole cloth.
Oh, I know that.
And it is fair, the
Yeah.
process is very set by state law, there's not much leeway.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this ordinance.
Second.
And we got a motion and a second. Plenty of time for discussion. Any no discussion, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Opportunities to be heard.
Yes, sir. I have several things. My motion to put some additional information into the minutes of the November, November the 27th meeting was voted down. I'd like to remind you of a question that's asked in the Attorney General's official meetings. And it says, yes, every public body is required to keep full, accurate minutes of all portions of official meetings, including closed sessions. Right. The meeting that we had an agenda. It was advertised. The majority of the board was present. And although no action was taken, I consider that to have been an official meeting. Now, does anybody want to
Did not suggest that we advertised that there would be no action taken.
We did. It was still an official meeting because we had a majority of the board here. Okay, no agenda. But I think the law also says that we can't meet with the majority of the members of this board unless, without it being an official meeting. Okay.
No, let's move on then.
No, wait a minute.
No, no, it's on yet,
Okay.
here's what I'm gonna say, Bob. Let's say it was an official meeting. Okay, are you saying that we should substitute for minutes that were not taken, the newspaper article?
All I'm saying is there should be a full, at least who spoke, and the fact that really there was nothing done or anything like that. I just felt like one sentence did not adequately say what we met about.
I understand what you're saying.
Now, are we off that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a little concerned if what I heard tonight is true. That we had an attempt to manage the news by withholding advertising. When that starts happening, or when this board starts deciding what's news, that's propaganda. Pure and simple. And we're a public body, and I'm very concerned about an attempt that may have been made to manage the news by withholding advertising. If we advertise in one newspaper, I think it's only fair if we advertise in both newspapers. Withholding advertising is completely illegal. We want to do it. But I have a question as to whether it's ethical or it's a moral thing for this public body or subdivision of this town to do. And I'm very concerned about it. And this may have completely been accidental. And I'm not condemning anybody. But I just cannot abide by any minor attempt to manage the news through something like withholding advertising by a subdivision of this town. That's my concern.
Got other comments? Open house?
Before you adjourn, I just have a transition report I want to present to the board. No action taken, doesn't need to be put on the agenda. This regards, of course, the manager's transition report. Warren and I will be making these on a monthly basis to the board. Again, no action is necessary.
We're going to stress this.
So this will mean Warren will be up here this month, be up here immediately.
Part of the time.
Oh, yeah, it'd have to be. What's the board's thoughts at this point?
I would just caution you that the operating personnel qualifications, issues of appointment, all of the stuff that's more or less required to be closed session. If you're gonna have a blood and guts discussion about it, it's gonna have to be closed session.
It's almost required, but it says may, does it not?
Yes, but it's a bit
There's a motion on the table.
I think I'll second Bill's motion. And see if there's a 5-to-1 vote.
There's a Motion is second, any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I hate to be the one wolf all the time.